Hello, welcome back to the Starting Story podcast with your host Krishna Palmer. Here we talk to business experts and ordinary people about the amazing stories they've had in starting a business and keeping it going. My special guest today is Melanie Wakelin. She works in the network marketing industry and is known for her platform bizbloomer.com, which showcases and supports small businesses by giving them a community-based stage to gain exposure. Melanie is also the host of the Activate and Illuminate podcast, where she engages with various ordinary people who have achieved extraordinary feats. I look forward to talking to Melanie about why she's running BizBloomer, why she finds that important, and how she combines that with her podcast to support her business and support her growth in general. So thank you so much for being here. Join me as I speak to Melanie Wakelin about her starting story. Well, Melanie, hello. Welcome to the Starting Story podcast. Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I am in Canada at the moment. I'm up very early, and
Yeah.
this is a great day, and I'm thankful and grateful to be on your show.
Well, I'm thankful and grateful you woke up so early to come onto the show. It's always a privilege to have people all across the world joining in. So, do you want to give a little bit of an introduction to what you do, the variety of things you do, and kind of very quickly why you do them?
Yeah, so I, a long time ago, I knew I was pretty much unemployable.
All right.
And I always resonated with the entrepreneurial spirit, and that was something that I just knew from a young age that excited me. So
Hmm.
I have spent the last number of years. I have three projects that I'm passionate about. Just my most recent one was a podcast called Activate and Illuminate. And I chose that. It kind of chose me, to be honest with
All
you.
right.
I've been looking to someone for help for one of my other projects. And she said, honestly, that's kind of out of my wheelhouse. I help people with podcasts. Have you ever considered a podcast? And I was like, no, honestly,
Hmm.
I haven't. But in that moment, I got goosebumps all over my body.
All right.
And I started feeling these feelings. I was like, what, a podcast? And so, honestly, this podcast is fairly new, it's fairly fresh, but it excites me so much because I was wanting to just showcase stories of ordinary people doing a little extraordinary things
Yeah.
and stepping out in their passion and in what they're doing that are really activating and illuminating the world or the people around them. So that's the first part. Now, why I'm so passionate about activation is I've spent the last 10 years doing a project with a company, bringing in cellular activators for people and animals that help their bodies turn on to be able to work like they should.
All right.
Spent my last 10 years talking about activation and that concept of activating others. What I was seeing was this domino effect of when you start to do something, whatever it is, other things start to happen, and when you start to activate yourself internally, the externally starts to shift as well. The business starts to shift, the personal, the everything starts to shift, and it's like a domino effect. So I'd been spending the last 10 years so excited about this activation concept and what it was doing for people and animals, but it just has become ingrained in me as something to talk about. So that's where that activation concept came from. Now, I have also spent quite some time uh, formulating a directory and a place for small businesses to feel seen and heard. I spent the last 5 years watching what had happened to small businesses, and
Yeah.
honestly, it just dug at my soul. I was like, when they said a small business, oh no, oh, we get to decide who is essential and who is non-essential. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Every small business is essential to the person that's running it and to the family that's behind it and to the people that it's supporting. And so I realized in that moment it was time to rebrand a little bit some of the platform that I had developed to have it just for small business. And so I created something called Biz Bloomer, and the idea of it is just to get small businesses seen and found.
Okay. So did you run a small business yourself beforehand?
Well, uh, I had spent I've spent I've spent years doing little things here and there, and I was passionate about the products that I was marketing. And what I had seen happen is a lot of people they start something, and just to be clear, those products that I was marketing were in the network marketing field. So many people come in, they think oh, okay, I have a business. And then they run out and they tell their friends and their family, and their friends and their family tell them that they're crazy. And then they don't really know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. Nobody knows what they do. And I mean, I know it's a little different now with social media. And I will be very honest in saying, I have not really nailed social media like I probably could.
Okay.
I've been doing it pretty much, old school. I mean, I'm on there a bit, but I do feel like that's something that I've been pretty much, running like a dinosaur.
Okay, okay. So that's kind of something similar to like small businesses, right? Because they not always can afford or have the team behind them to be just innovating crazy like the big things, right? So
Yeah,
that's almost a little bit why, an aspect of Biz Bloomer, which is about maybe getting that exposure that they need. But
yeah.
what exactly is it that Biz Bloomer does for these businesses? Because there's so many ways you could help a business, but which one of those problems does Biz Bloomer solve?
Well, it's a directory that allows them, it's a platform that allows them to showcase all of their spots, all of their stuff in one spot so they can link their social to it. It can basically become like a mini website for them.
Okay, okay.
So they can link their events to it, they can advertise coupons to it, they can, write articles, they can upload videos, they can upload products, they can promote their online products, courses. And then when people find them on there, they can essentially, have that all in one spot.
Okay. So it kind of solves the problem of exposure and giving them that website, right? Because if you don't have a website, then or like at least like a central hub for links and information and products, and I assume if they have new releases, they can put on there as well.
Yes, absolutely. Now, also, what it does is, being found on a directory is a lot easier than necessarily not everyone has the budget to get found on Google.
Yeah, yeah. So that's great. So Bizboomer, it's solving that problem which small businesses have, which is about not being able to get in front of the big people, in front of the masses, and it kind of provides that. So what was your process of building it then? From the beginning, when you maybe had this idea, I mean, did you know from the beginning what this was going to be, or was that, I assume it was maybe a little bit of a work in progress? But what were the first steps like?
Well, to be honest with you, so I was involved in the healing businesses. So I was sitting in my little shop where I had, waiting on some clients that never showed. And at that time, my kids were really small. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm paying for a babysitter. My husband was working away, and I'm paying for a babysitter. I'm not even covering costs, and they didn't show up. And I just wish there was a way that I could have people come without all this effort and without waiting for them to, and them not showing up. So I was sitting there, and I remember going online and I was listening to a guy, Richard Gerber was his name, and I listened to him talk about how if you have a service, you don't have a business.
All right. Okay.
And it kind of blew my mind. So I was sitting there, here I was providing this service. I had this little place. I was doing all kinds of different holistic treatments and therapies and stuff. And I I was thinking, oh, well, what this is what I have? He's like, no, if you have a service and your business depends solely on you and it is not able to be done by anybody else, it's not actually a business, it's a service. And it just made me think, oh, okay, in that moment I wanted to provide a platform, and I had this idea. I could see it in my head. It was like this kind of hub of connection for like people plugging into.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, it wasn't a smooth, easy road. Honestly, this was probably about 15 years ago. At that time, I had this idea and I went out to somebody and I asked them to help me build it. They were a website builder,
Yeah.
and so we built out an extensive platform that did it. At that time, there wasn't the directory softwares and so forth that there was now. So we built out an extensive platform, and shortly after we launched, I ended up in my naivety giving up half my shares to one of the ladies that I had been collaborating with for over a year. And anyways, about a week after that, she pulled the shotgun clause and tried to take the whole business. And
Oh
I knew I
my.
needed a lawyer like instantly. And so in that moment, I had to decide whether I was going to fight for it. And to be honest with you, we didn't really have the money to,
Mm.
but in that moment, for a big legal fight, but in that moment, I knew that I was fighting for or standing up for what I felt was right. And so I did. And as soon as there was the realization that I was going to stand for something, there was no longer a fight. And so that was a really big lesson to me. And I feel like that took a few little digs into my psyche here and there. And I spent, a while just thinking, oh, like, can I do this on my own, or can I, like, I'll be honest, I did not have a degree and in what we were doing, and I didn't have in-depth training in what I was needing done. But I knew
Mm.
that I could always, that when I needed somebody, they would show up.
Okay. So, kind of a bit of a rocky start, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, who
yeah.
expects that? You've put all your hard work into starting something, and then your partner just goes, "I'm gonna take it all." I mean, clearly they clearly saw some kind of future in this once you launched. So, if anything, that should have been a good kind of piece of information. Um, but okay, you had that legal battle. Obviously, no one wants to have. I mean, you didn't have the legal battle. You just kind of, once you showed that I will fight for myself, the fight kind of didn't continue. But of course, if you wouldn't have done that, then the business would have been lost from your end. So, was there any? Did you feel like by your partner taking the business, they wanted to steer it in a different direction that you didn't like? Because why do you feel like you had to stand up for something that was right?
Uh, just in the way that it was being handled, I knew that I knew that the entire process had been set up
Hmm.
to acquire, and I had set up a few of the legal stuff in place ahead of time that did give me a little bit of protection, but I just there was a real mind game attached to it. Like, Melanie, I have an MBA. You don't have an MBA. You're not going to be able to do this. You're
Ah,
not going to be able to do this. And there was months and months of really trying to drive my psyche so low that I did not have the capacity to believe that I could do it.
so then
Yeah.
what kind of did you pull out of it at the end then, once you're on the other end of that kind of ditch that you went through? What did
Well,
it
to be
teach
honest,
you?
oh, sorry to interrupt you. To be
That's
honest with you, it taught me resilience, and it taught me that if you're going to do something, and here's what I see happening in every single business is, and I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not the, you know, best business speaker, the best business programs, that I have not necessarily, I wouldn't tell you that I'm an expert in necessarily anything, but I will tell you that I have figured out that when people believe in themselves, they're unstoppable. And it does not matter what you know, what you don't know. I believe that it's synchronicities and the energetics of being human will always trump
yeah,
will
and
always
I think
trump.
that's the kind of unique take you have as well, because you, as you said, you had been working on that kind of activation on animals and humans. So you probably have that kind of unique take on everything, in terms of no matter what's happening, as long as your energy and your energy and your direction is correct, then every hurdle can be crossed. It will still feel like a hurdle, but at least you can still cross it. Um, so is that something you'd agree with? Your kind of previous understanding of activation and energies, has that kind of continued with you and perhaps stayed with you even during your toughest times?
Yeah, 100%. And I realized that my belief in myself was what was required. And so many of these, you know, any type of business, our resiliency in life is what gives us the moments to go forward. Just a little example of, so I'll be honest with you. When I turned 50, I was like, okay, Melanie, you need to get it a little stronger than you are right now. I felt myself not being as strong. And so the hardest thing that I did was go walk into a gym. That was like, I had so much noise in my head over walking into a gym. But after that happened, and I mean, it wasn't like, I was all of a sudden some kind of instant hero gym person.
Yeah, yeah.
But after that happened, I felt like, oh, wow, I can do anything. Like, that was like the hardest thing for me, was to get that mindset of, um, and so it's the it's the little moments that create success that make you feel. So I personally think so much of business is simply about your self-worth and your mindset.
Okay, and that's something that I've kind of resonated with a lot of guests as well, where it's about, you know, if you just stay a results oriented person, it's great, but sometimes the results don't give back the energy you've put into it. So it's about making sure you're motivated by your own kind of goals and aims, and making sure that even if there's a failure, recognizing it as self growth, and making everything seem positive. And yeah, I think it's a very powerful message, because of course this can be something, as you've seen, it can be lonely, and you can even have people who are backlashing against you. So it's good to build that kind of resilience, I suppose, into what you're doing. So then, moving on to this podcast, illuminate and no, activate and illuminate. Okay, activate kind of makes sense, where you're coming from. Um, why do you think the podcast was important? What is it that the podcast does, and why is it important to you, most importantly?
Well, I wanted to bring, I saw so many people doing examples that were ordinary people, ordinary people, uh, doing examples that were just living their life in a way that was inspiring to me.
Mm,
Inspiring, and that's what inspires me is someone that is doesn't have necessarily any superpowers or any, y- you know, elite background or any type of edge. But when they're doing something in a way that lights them up and lights others up, that's what inspires me. And so I wanted to find stories, those type of stories that would I wanted to have the conversations that excited me. And I was having a lot of those conversations anyways,
mm,
but then I realized, like, and then as I got into it, people are like, "Oh, Mel, like this is this is what you're supposed to be doing. Like you're talking." And which you're talking, I feel like I can bring out people's feelings.
okay.
And if you can get people to feel something, I think that's the point. So many of these, what we talk about business and this, when you say results oriented, to me that's a very, very push energy. That's very, you're pushing, trying, you're striving. And it's not to say that it's not bad or that it's not good,
Mm,
but it is an entire different energy than allowing and being. And so when you see somebody being who they're meant to be versus trying to be who they're meant to be, when you see somebody being who they're meant to be in those little moments, that's what I feel like needs illumination.
And there's always going to be different sides of the coin on this one because, I've spoken to people who said exactly about the trying and striving, and, business is about, you have no friends in business, everything is competition. And then on the other hand, I've spoken to a lot of people as well who said that business doesn't have to be that way, and you can still be yourself and find the niche where not only are you solving a problem, but you're solving it in a way that you find enjoyable and you find fun to do. Which is why there's always going to be those polar opposites. But I think it's important to raise awareness to those both, because I think people that do that trying and striving, really pushing yourself and innovating every single day, sticking to schedules, forcing yourself to do things, is it's great. It'll get you to grow, but then of course, like we've seen with so many other people, as soon as things start to fail, you need to have a fallback of yourself, so you can at least stay strong with yourself and have that self-esteem, that even if you push but it doesn't work out, you're strong. Which is where this secondary kind of thing comes in about be fun, stay to yourself, give yourself time to do things, have a rest day every once in a while, and enjoy the process, I suppose, because it's all about the journey rather than destination, right? So, what on this podcast? What kind of people have you spoken to? Is there any specific conversation or framework that you've spoken about that you were like, wow, I've never heard of that before?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, most of the stories that I have on, I have heard about their story before, or I knew about it before speaking to them. But
Hmm.
um, I have had police whistleblowers. I've had people that, have you ever heard of the 60s scoop or residential schools in Canada?
No, never heard of it.
Yeah. I've had people that were taken by the government from their homes at 4 years old, here in Canada as part of a program called the 60s scoop, placed into residential schools.
Hmm.
Um, I've had people with fantastic healing techniques and frequency devices, different ways of healing people. I've had people that talked about different topics, like, for example, sexual abuse. I've had people talk about some of the stuff that's happening right now in the media. I've had doctors on speaking about this activation concept and what healing from the cells does. I've had um, I had a young man who decided, without a lot of experience, that he was going to canoe by himself for 3,000 kilometers
What?
around the tip of Canada, around the north, and then down through Saskatchewan. It was a 3,000-kilometer journey by himself. And that was, just listening to why somebody would do that.
Yeah, that's insane.
Right? So that's just a few examples. Yeah.
Okay, so you've spoken to loads of people, and after speaking to so many people, what is your kind of viewpoint about when people do activate and illuminate? What is their kind of viewpoint? How do they do it? And what do you think someone who maybe, if someone was sitting outside and had to get a quick tidbit of information from the podcast and advice, what would you say?
I have a gentleman coming to mind who, in his mid-40s, pushed, he was average dad bod. He was out of shape, not doing super well physically, and decided that he was going to go into martial arts. And now he's, one of the ranking top in the world jiu-jitsu uh, athletes in the MMA. And so it that inspired me, because when I heard him speak about what pushed him and what drove him, it was this idea that anything is possible.
Yeah.
That you can turn any bus around, that you can, get on another track, that you can push yourself in ways that you don't even know. And that story of him transforming himself, and mostly his mindset. He said it all came down to his mindset and his coach. And at different times, I feel like I've had some coaching in my corner that was so helpful, because they allowed me to see things that I didn't maybe see or recognize. And
Mm.
so I think that aspect, the mindset piece, and what we actually allow ourselves to believe, because if you believe something different's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the only thing there is shifting is your beliefs.
Mm.
So that was a fantastic story of perseverance.
Yeah, that's true. And this is exactly kind of what your podcast does, right? It's just finding those normal people and trying to find times when they've shown and illuminated and kind of helped people out in times of need, or helped themselves out in times of need when needed. Um, all of this in general, Melanie, like for example, your podcast, Biz Bloomer, your previous kind of networking experience, it's all allows you to speak to new people, right? Which I think is a
Mhm.
really good skill to have and a really good piece of experience to have, because speaking to new people, not only does it allow you to improve your social skills and be able to talk better and make conversations out of nothing, but it also means you get to have different perspectives on the same thing. You gain experience on how someone else might think. And if you're doing it globally, like a podcast does, then you really find out how people in different parts of the world think. It can be surprising how, someone in America thinks different than someone who's in China or Japan. It's a completely different way of like living, which is really interesting to me. So, with all of this experience you've had in speaking to new people and networking, what would you say is a really good piece of advice for someone who maybe is worried or is scared of talking to someone new?
Mm, that's a great question.
I mean, it's true. There's so many people who are scared, aren't they? You tell them to go
Yeah,
out, have a
yeah,
conversation, they can't. They don't know what to do.
yeah. And I would say to talk to somebody new, just to me, the biggest thing that always transfers through any conversation is authenticity. So if you're scared, I would say like, hey, sorry, I'm a bit scared right now. That like would cut the ice.
Yeah.
And that real authentic feeling of what you're feeling right now will settle you, settle everybody. But that I would say always that feeling of authenticity is always what's going to, if you can pretend, and I do agree that there is a, certain amount of fake it till you make it in some search situations, but I would say push through that, be authentic and be yourself. Do not try to be something that people feel scared when they think they have to be somebody that they're not.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
and that's what we feel scared. Oh, they're gonna think that you know, that I am they're gonna know I drive a Toyota instead of a Lexus. They're gonna know this. Well, who cares? And if you just brought up that and, went into it with that this is who I am, I feel like that would solve a lot of people's fear right off the bat. But I will say there is a huge, this idea of talking to people and connecting. There is so much more power in collaborating with somebody than there is in trying to figure out what you each have over each other. The power of, 1 plus 1 is 2, but, 1 plus 2 might be 5.
Hmm.
This power of working together and, creating community, you never know where that one little conversation that you might have with somebody strikes up a connection where y the 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 results are immeasurable down the road.
Yeah, that's true. I had a guest on a couple of months ago, Mickey Farmer, and he literally gave me a, a scenario where he was like an amateur videographer, and he overheard someone in the subway talking about how he needed LinkedIn photos, and he thought, oh, I'll just approach this guy. So he approaches him, say, I'll do a free photo shoot for you. Just you need the photos. I've just heard you say it, so I'll just do a free photo shoot for you. He does the photo shoot. The guy is really impressed. Gives him $500, the most he's ever been paid. And go 10 years down the line, the person he did the photo shoot for is now his business mentor. And I was just thinking, like, when you trace something back to the point of connection, I was like, what are the chances that you were on that subway that day? You could have been late by 5 minutes and caught the next subway, and you would have never ever probably met that person who is now your business mentor and is teaching you all these things. So it just puts into perspective of not to you don't have to talk to every single person, but you shouldn't shy away from it either. If the situation does call for, you're talking to someone, let's say you're on a bus sitting next to someone, or let's say you're in a meeting on the table with someone else you've never met, rather than avoiding eyes, sometimes it can be better to just break the ice straight away, even if that is, as you said, saying, I'm a bit scared, or this is a bit nervous, or this event is really, really posh, I feel like I'm not ready for it. Sometimes just that is enough to kind of break through the professional layer and go into the human side of things. And that can mean that conversation is so much more authentic and real. And the person will understand it as well. If someone ever came to me and said, if I was doing something and they said, oh, I'm a bit scared, but I want to talk to you about something, you'd be rude to say no, go away. No one's gonna say, if you're scared, I'm not speaking to you. Come on, let's be confident. Everyone, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, no worries, come on, sure, I'll show you around, kind of thing. So yeah, it's so true. You never know where each connection takes you, so you should just try and make as many as possible. And that's kind of what you're doing with BizBloomer, helping people make those connections, giving them a directory for these small businesses, which otherwise almost run autonomously but independently, right? Which is kind of why they fail to grow, or they fail to be recognized really from these big businesses. It's so easy for other people to say, you're essential, you're not needed, you are needed. But if you can put it all into one directory, then it's like we work together, and this is all on one
Yeah.
thing. And same thing with the podcast, and same thing with your other previous experiences with like activation and stuff. So with all this, how before you would have done this, you might have been thinking like, how do I make money off it, right? So BizBlueNote, it's a very big directory. How do you kind of make money off that? If you want to talk a little bit about it, is there like a subscription fee?
Yeah,
What's the way?
people can sign up for free. So you'll see a lot of the listings are on there are actually for free listings. But there's also a paid membership. So you can, there's two different plans, and the different plans give you a few, little bit more service. For example, you're not going to be able to post your videos with a free membership, and you're not going to necessarily be able to, you know, um, have the same community features as you would have with a free membership. But it is, I would say, sign up on it. You can sign up. You can sign up for free. You can sign up for paid, whatever it is that you resonate with. You can move to paid. You can downgrade to free, whatever it is that you want, and start plugging in your stuff. I'll be honest. There's not many people in the UK, so I am here in the wilds of Canada. And so a lot of the people are, the US and Canada. I think there might actually only be one business in the UK listed. So,
Wow.
so yeah, I would just put your stuff in there, and just do it. Get yourself on the platform, and I'm open to any feedback. I'm open to any type of experience that you're having, and it will not hurt.
Yeah.
It will not hurt, and it can only help. So
Yeah, exactly. It's like we were saying with the conversation. It won't hurt. It can only be positive.
yeah,
And even if you're in the UK, of course, do BizBloomer, but then also just keep on experimenting with other directories and see what kind of works for you. And that doesn't have to be directories. It could be the videos you create. Rather than just sticking to the same thing, just kind of keep experimenting. Um, because like we said, you might just do something spontaneous and random, but it just clicks. Either clicks with you or clicks with the people that you're trying to show. And that might be your new favorite thing.
So, for example, it's for anybody. It's for anybody that, might have like a 1 to 10 person business. It's not really developed for, the large corporate businesses. It's more for the
Mm-hmm.
small mom and pop type of things. But for example, in this um, activation business that I'm doing, and in this network marketing business, the reason that I find network marketing, it has a bad rap. Honestly, it really does. It
Okay.
has a it has a bad rap because so many people get into it, and maybe don't necessarily know how to promote themselves, and are bothering all their friends and family. But what stands it alone is that anybody can do it. So
Mm.
if anybody can do it, and there's a low point of entry, and anybody can do it, and you just need to do it. It really does eliminate location. It eliminates education. It eliminates, gender. It eliminates all these other things that, people say might be barriers. And that's what I feel, I'm trying to have BizBloomer be for people, is the type of spot that I could go if I just want to get my product seen a little bit sooner than Susie Q down the road that maybe doesn't know where to go.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of network marketing, what exactly does that mean? And we've kind of already talked about networking, but what is network marketing?
So network marketing is essentially some of these companies that have products find a distribution channel to get it out to people. So instead of putting it in stores,
Mm.
um, now our product had originally been in stores, um, and nobody knew what it did, and nobody knew how important it was. But it is, they find a group of people, and so people can then become a distributor or a consultant, whatever the terminology of that company is, and start start being essentially becoming a middleman for these products. But in today's society, a middleman generally is just a link, a link. So you get paid to refer products, you get paid to be the middle point. And then why it's important and why it is so powerful is I'd done sales before. I'd done different types of sales, but like for example, in my early 20s, I was selling cars.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
And right? And so you go from at the beginning of the month, you go from 0, and if you do really well, you're a hero at the end of the month. But back at that beginning of the month, you're back to being 0 again. And
Mm.
your performance is always based on what you're doing like in that moment. Whereas the difference between that and network marketing is you're leveraging a team of people, you're building up and you're getting paid a little bit of the efforts off of a whole bunch of people. And for example, when if I told somebody about this 10 years ago, I'm still getting paid a little bit of that that referral every single month, even now.
Mm.
So you're not just doing a sale for one time. You're doing a sale and you're getting a little bit of, ongoing residual income, which I didn't realize how important it was. I didn't go into it looking for network marketing. I certainly didn't want a network marketing business. Um, but have had moments over the last 10 years. For example, I had a really bad concussion and I took a really bad fall about probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I couldn't even talk on the phone. I couldn't drive. I could not work. And that money kept coming in. And so, I had built up the network to be paying for, in times when I couldn't talk. And I think that's the power of network marketing. It does have a bad rap. And so it's important to find, first of all, so many privately held companies, they don't necessarily have the disclosure and you don't necessarily, you might build it and you don't necessarily know the financial situation of that company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to find something that is transparent and above board and that has accountability and reporting. But it's also important to find something that has timing. It's also important to find something that people want every month and that they will, once they know about it, that they will want that product every single month because unless you have all those things, it's not going to probably be truly residual income.
Okay. It's kind of that, what's it called? Money freedom and time freedom, I suppose, because you're not directly trading your time for money, which is what you'd normally get in like a sales job or any 9 to 5 job. You're trading your time, which is why you sometimes get paid by the hour. It literally is time for money. Whereas, of course, with these things where it's affiliate or kind of background recurring income, then it's something you've done once, and if you've done it well, then it'll keep paying, and that obviously builds up. Obviously, initially, it's not going to be a massive amount, but it'll build up slowly, slowly,
No,
slowly, to the point that when you are in need, like you were, Melanie, it comes in and it helps out. It's almost like an investment into the future you, right?
yeah, I feel like people underestimate a lot what can happen, in a few years, but they overestimate what can happen at the beginning. So they, a lot of people jump into these things and they think, okay, like, I can quit my job.
Yeah, 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 straight away.
And it's like, no, 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 you can't quit your job, or you shouldn't. And some of these things are great to build as side gigs and side opportunities until they are paying. You have to do the work, and it's not just gonna. Most of these things are not, and if they are an instant scenario, they generally are a scam.
True, exactly. Too good to be true. Yeah, obviously be careful about
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
this is amazing. What are your future plans then for Biz Bloomer or the podcast, where do you want to make it or see it grow next?
Honestly, this concept of the podcast, what excites me the most is connecting with other people, connecting with, communities, hearing people's stories. And, you know, for example, I had a lady on doing feng shui. Do you know what feng shui is?
I have heard of it, but I do not remember.
So feng shui is where you're like very intentional with your space and creating spaces. So for example, she was talking about the importance of cleaning out your closets and cleaning out your space and how, and I had actually had this process done in my home, and so we were talking about this idea of feng shui and cleaning out the closets. Now then, I had somebody that I knew listen to that episode and said, Melanie, okay, I went and I did this and I cleaned up my closet. And I had all this extra money come in and all this extra abundance. I knew that it wouldn't have happened had I not made space for this. And so those little moments of people finding things within themselves that connect to other stories that they've heard are what excites me. So I'm always getting messages like, hey, I just listened to this person and weird, this was happening in my life and it made so much sense. And that's what excites me. I feel like I'm just like, I just want to be like a professional connector. That's what I want to do, is just, connect people to ideas and things that maybe they haven't heard about before. Maybe
Yeah.
they haven't had exposure to. Maybe they haven't given themselves permission to even think about. For example, this story that I was telling you about with the police whistleblower. Well, it's like, what would you do if you knew that something wrong was happening? Would you stand up even if you knew you were going to lose your job, even if you knew you were going to be persecuted, even if you knew all these different things were going to, that years later you were still going to be dealing with these things? And it's that courage and that character that I'm able to showcase is what excites me.
Yeah, that's so true. And I've already said that about how doing a podcast myself, and like you said, you've noticed as well, the amount of different ideas and perspectives and opinions that you come across on a variety of topics or even similar topics is astounding. We just, maybe because of social media, maybe because of just the way we've grown up, we always think there's one way of thinking, one way of learning, one way of existing. Until we listen to that person who's in a different country, or until we listen to that person who's 3 decades older than us, and then we're like, whoa, he has a completely different perspective. That I never thought about it that way. And yeah, it's astounding to me as well, just how much you can learn from another person's way of thinking about the same problem, and how you could maybe apply it to your own problems, like you said with the space, how you could apply it. And I've had people as well. I've had a couple of like spiritual healers and stuff on, and they talk about that as well, about creating space, being very intentional with your thoughts, maybe having like a thought diary. I've not got to the point of doing a thought diary, but that kind of idea of recording everything you think, just so you can maybe at the end of the day, maybe at the end of the week, just go back and go, right, maybe, if you're feeling really bad about yourself, you go through your thought diary and you're like, oh, you know what? Just because I missed the bus, I was moody for the entire day. Maybe that's the problem right there. Or just because someone didn't say good morning to me, I just didn't speak to them the entire day. These like little things that you won't really notice because it's subconscious, but you pick up on them and you start to change your kind of way of living and you improve yourself. So what about Biz Bloomer? What do you want to do with that? How do you want to move that forward?
So I would like to create a lot more exposure for it, for people to be to have a lot more access to it, and to get
Okay.
a lot more different types of businesses on there,
Hmm.
to get a lot more listings, and to have the community itself really grow, because there's so many features in that platform that are really community oriented. So it becomes a little bit of its own subculture of support.
Yeah.
And, I would love to showcase a lot more people's talents, a lot more people's products, a lot more of, innovations. I would love to just be able to connect people to, like, there's so many people that have a business, or that, whether it's a storefront, whether it's an online something, but they're just sitting there at home thinking, how can I get seen? How can I connect with people? And, this may not be the whole answer for them, but it could maybe be part of the answer that, just like you say, strikes that one, you know, opportune moment where somebody sees something of theirs.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Exactly. And then how do you plan to do this? So it's amazing that you're trying to grow that exposure, not only to get more businesses onto the directory to build that community out, but then maybe trying to get those businesses out on the directory a bit more exposure as well. But do you have any methods that you already are planning to do that?
Yeah, so I have a social I, I have a lot more effort going into social media and into social marketing.
Hmm.
So I am attracting help for that. Let's say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So getting that exposure that way, it's probably
Yeah.
the fastest one I think nowadays, social media, and it reaches out to the biggest audience, whoever's interested. So yeah, good idea. Well, Melanie, thank you so much. I mean, this conversation has it's it's talked about a lot, not only about business and like, the setbacks in terms of if your what happens if your partner backlashes on you. Um, you know, launching a business should be a very seamless and fun experience, but of course, having to deal with something like that so early on can really damage your psyche, your self esteem. So yeah, talking about not only business and running it, but then also how to make sure you're strong in the process as well. You're not running the business so much that you run yourself thin, and making sure that you have, no matter what your plans are for your entrepreneurial journey, no matter what your goals are, maybe materialistic wise, but also having that strength and resilience, um, to know that no matter what happens, you've got yourself and that you're very confident in your decisions, and you can always fall back on yourself if everything does fall apart. And then we kind of did also talk about the benefit of almost investing in yourself from a business perspective so that you don't end up trading your time for money, trading your freedom for money, so that later on, either when you retire or if you're in a situation like for you where medical problems or family emergency, or even if you just want to take a hiatus from everything, you just want to, take a break. Money is not the thing that's blocking you from doing so. You want that to not be the thing that's affecting your decisions about life and having fun. So it's about, like you said, not overestimating the start, knowing that it's going to be a slow, tedious journey initially, but then persisting through it via that kind of self resilience, and seeing it through to the end. So, a really good conversation, Melanie. Thank you so much for coming on. Finally, I'd like to kind of ask you, because your story is so much about resilience and it's so much about growing and building yourself. When you look back, if you were going back to the Melanie who maybe is worried about the business she spent so long building but is about to be taken from her hands, what piece of advice would you give yourself to give yourself some strength at that time?
I would say that we are always in the right spot at the right time, and that whatever it is that happens is always happening for a reason.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I also wanted to touch on is when we have those impulses and we have those thoughts of we should do this, or we should, and then we usually start talking ourselves out of it. We should do this, and then no, but when you have that thought, that is like a direct instruction manual to where you need to go next. And so I would tell myself to listen more to those thoughts, to act on them more, and that I was enough, and that I was important, and that if you have the thought and the vision and the dream of something, it's there for a reason, and you wouldn't be given the vision if it wasn't for you.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So stick through, and everything is there for a reason. And like I was saying before, even if you failed miserably, it's all there
I
as a
have.
learning experience. Well, yeah, exactly. And I've spoken to some people who said, they've lost, millions because of a mistake they made. I mean, for written on paper, that should be like life ending. You're like, well, what the hell is this? Like, how have I lost so much money? But of course, everything is a learning experience. You just build up from it, build yourself from it, and exit from the other end stronger than the person you started with. So yeah, as long as you can view things in that perspective, I think it's a really good way to move forward. So I think that's a really good like take home point. If you succeed, amazing. If you fail, you've grown. So either way, it's a
Yeah,
win-win.
yeah.
You can't take things as a loss. At least you took action. I always try to think. If ever like if ever you think, oh, am I doing the right thing, am I doing this correctly, I just think, well, it's better than the person who did nothing, right? I'm doing something. It's better than the person who thought about it and didn't even do anything. So you're already better than a lot of people.
Well, you look at kids, you look at kids that have been, made to have chores and tasks and work, and kids that have never had any type of um, challenges are not resilient.
Yeah.
That they're not resilient, and eh, so I feel like so much of our society and our work life and our life in general is down to resilience. And when you have those challenges and you fail at something, that's just building resiliency.
Yeah, exactly. Taking those risks and seeing them through, and building yourself as a person. Well, Melanie, thank you so much for coming on to the Starting Story podcast, sharing so openly everything that you have done. So, um, where can people find out more about you and what you do?
Well, they can go to bizbloomer.com, bizbloomer.com, if they're interested in having their business there. They can find me on the podcast, activate and illuminate.com.
Yep.
And from there, you'll be able to see all my other links as well to the activation story, if that's what you're looking for, or also the Biz Bloomer story.
Amazing. And all the links will be in the description for anyone who's interested. Thank you so much
Yeah.
again, Melanie. I look forward to speaking again later on, maybe a year later, a couple of months later, see how things have been going along for you. Maybe if you started something new and kind of having another catch up.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for this conversation, and I appreciate what you're doing.